just throw it open to questions, and reminder just to turn your phones off. Thanks. You just raise your hand and we'll call on you.
I guess that probably applies to me as well.
First time ever?
I don't know where the off button is.
Questions?
Stevie's up.
In 25 words or less, talk about the 2011 season.
Remarkable validation of the system. A group of guys that I was just talking to Andrew upstairs. A group of guys that know how to win. The culture's been flipped. Beginning of the year, the demise of the Rays, I guess it was greatly exaggerated. So it really comes down to the players as a group and how they think on a daily basis. But it was a remarkable year, a validation of the system, and it really bodes well for the future. Billy.
It's based on what Stu was saying the other day. Is there a meeting with you guys that might discuss any kind of...
Is there a what?
Will you have a meeting with him that might discuss any kind of payroll constraints for next season?
You know, we operate, as you guys well know by now, without a set number. There's going to be things that come up this winter. It's great for us in baseball operations because it allows us to be nimble. There's going to be things that come up that, you know, just like the Rafael Soriano thing before the 2010 season. And so there's going to be a range. The one thing that I'm confident about is that we're going to have an extremely talented team, the composition of which, how things are going to unfold, I'm not sure of yet. But with the guys that we have returning, with the areas that we'll be looking to address, you know, there's a lot of different ways for us to go. And we relish that. It's something that allows us to be creative and something that, you know, as we get into our off-season planning, which is obviously a little sooner than we hoped, you know, we'll go through all those different things and present different scenarios to Stu, but, you know, like in years past, it won't be a set number.
Mark.
And just along that line, it probably isn't a positive feeling going forward reading this comment to expand the payroll or to be able to make additions. Would you come up with that gut feeling today?
Well, I think the one thing we've also learned about Stu is, you know, things change. He likes to say markets change, things change. Before we got Rafael Soriano, he said that there was going to be no $7 million closer coming. 5 days later, there was. And so, you know, I know that he's frustrated. But, you know, on the baseball operations side of things, we try to insulate ourselves from that. It doesn't do us any good, you know, to get caught up in that. You know, we understand and appreciate that our AL East brothers spend more than we do. You know, we get that. You know, we operate, you know, within that. It's part of our organizational DNA by now. And it's what Joe touched on with the culture, the expectation to win. It's part of who we are now. And, you know, we relish the us against the world mentality. And our guys have embraced it. And so it makes it even more special to do that in this division. And we don't get caught up in the external factors.
You don't expect them to place any different limits on you than in the past?
I mean, you know, I think, like we said, I expect that it will be, you know, have some flexibility up and down, depending on how things shake out and what presents itself from a player procurement standpoint in terms of what we can get, what it means in terms of our other guys and how it fits. But we're going to be a really talented team next year. You know, we've proven time and time again that it's not necessarily about the payroll number. It's about the talent that we have. And so it's easy to use it as an excuse, but the two of us refuse to do so.
You both come across fans, I'm sure, as you're around this town. What do you tell them when they voice their frustrations with you when it comes to a payroll or an attendance number?
I don't get frustration. Honestly, I don't. I get a lot of compliments about our boys. That's what I get. Everybody and I do hang out a lot up in the South Tampa area mostly, compliments about how we play. That's what I get. They love our guys. They love our method of play. I don't get a whole lot of frustration from the people I actually come in contact with, honestly. It's been primarily a positive exchange, and you know, maybe like when you're talking to somebody face to face, you're normally going to tend to be on the positive as opposed to the negative side of things. But for the most part, the fan base that I run into in the South Tampa area, nothing but complimentary and positive, and they like the way the Rays play baseball. And really, at the end of the day, that's my concern. I'm supposed to be in charge of how the Rays play baseball. And I love the way the Rays play baseball. I really do. I think we do it the right way. Sometimes I think we're misconstrued a little bit too, where we're considered to have this new slant or this new way of doing things. I think we're the most throwback team among all baseball teams that are playing baseball today. I really do. I mean, if you watch us play, we are about as old school and old-fashioned as there is. We may morph and utilize some new methodologies, but at the end of the day, the Rays play baseball the right way, and I'm really proud of our guys. But I think the fans recognize that. That's my point. And actually, when we go on the road nationally, we're recognized well. Different ballparks, in different hotels. I'll get people coming up to me all the time, complimenting the way the Rays play baseball. And that's the part. That's my takeaway from all of this all the time. And on top of that, we have great fans. We have wonderful fans here. The ballpark. The last couple of playoff games, the folks that were there, they were fantastic. They are fantastic. It's the loudest, it's among the loudest venues in all of Major League Baseball, and I do support these folks and really appreciate what they've done for us too. So I see it as being positive every place that I do go. I tend to slant to the positive side of things normally anyway, but. That's been my experience, both in South Tampa and nationally when we travel. People dig the way the Rays play baseball.
I mean, I haven't gotten anything negative either. It's the same type of effusive praise about the way our guys do it. I think people like the fact that we don't use it as an excuse. We take on the teams in this division with, you know, the resource gap being what it is. Obviously, all of us would like to have a higher payroll. To have more money to put into development, but it's not something that we get caught up in, and everything that I get, you know, from fans is nothing but gratitude for what we've accomplished over the last 4 years. To be in the playoffs 3 out of the last 4 years, you know, to have a winning season 4 years in a row, I think those are the hallmarks of this organization that the fans appreciate.
So why the disconnect then? If you're saying you appreciate the validation of the system and it's working, you're enjoying it.
I think your question is way off base. I think the question of, is Stu, what do we think of Stu's comments? That's one question. The fans and the feedback that we get from them is positive. I don't understand your question.
But if the question is it sustainable? And right now it's working, this model, even with the flexibility, is it sustainable?
Well, I mean, it's something that we've talked a lot about not only getting to the point of achieving success, but being able to sustain it. It's obviously extremely difficult in this division, and it's what makes just looking back so special to all of us in this organization. Now, and it started yesterday, I was extremely proud of, our front office was packed yesterday, and everybody was focused on the 2012 season. Obviously a lot of, I don't want to say disappointment, but you know, people who felt like our season ended a little early, like we all did, but the best way to get over that is to focus on, you know, the season ahead. And so all of us are now challenged with the task of repeating this 4-year run, and we feel like we have the players in place, you know, to have a very successful 2012 season. And as we've always done, we're going to have one eye focused on, you know, the next season and another on the out seasons, because that's the way we're going to be able to sustain success. Is it easy? Of course not. In this division, to compete against the teams that we do with the revenue gap and to try to close that revenue gap on an annual basis is extremely difficult. But it's why having success in this division is so special.
Billy.
Look, guys, based on what y'all saw Matt Moore as a here, I know David, after he had his playoff run the first year, he went back to mine. Are you all satisfied that he's And if so, is it, wide open competition come spring training?
It's definitely going to be, something that we're going to spend a lot of time on this winter. We didn't expect or hope to have the conversation as early as we're going to have it. So we haven't spent a lot of time on it. We had some questions about the polish when we brought him up, but seeing what he did, I think answered a lot of those questions, at least in a small sample. It's similar to Jeremy Hellickson in that Jeremy Hellickson came up in those first X amount of starts. He was phenomenal. And so it gets to our entire personnel and where we are when we get to spring training. There's going to be a bunch of different scenarios we're going to talk through. I've said this a lot, but starting pitching depth for us is everything. For us to have success in this division, it is tied so directly to our starters and what we've been able to accomplish on that front, because that's the one area that we can't make great decisions under the radar. We can't do things in a way that where we get guys and put them into a certain role and what Joe does. We can't do that in this division. We need to have them. We need to have guys who are extremely talented, can get swings and misses in this division, all of which is extremely difficult. So we can't ever lose that. If we ever have to go to market for that, we're in a lot of trouble.
Well, about Matt specifically, his makeup is what makes him different also. He's got this great arm. He's got a high skill set, but his makeup is outstanding. That's the one thing I found out rather quickly. We all did, because I had not seen him throw at all in spring training, not even really met him outside of a handshake, and then I see him in a game in Baltimore. And I watch him wind up for the first time, and I love the delivery, and then you got to love the ball out of the hand, etc. But beyond all that, can he handle this emotionally and mentally? And then he showed that he can. That's the big question to be answered. Can he handle it mentally and emotionally? And with that, I think what occurs after that is fastball command. The thing I always talk about is commanding your fastball, and I think you have to have the right kind of pulse and heartbeat in order to do that on a major league level, and I think he's got that. So like Andrew's saying, we'll figure that out in the spring, but he definitely has all the necessary equipment to be very successful here. Yes?
If, and this is to both of you, if your starting rotation is the primary starting point, should not catcher be the second point? And are you looking at that gap during the off season to fill it?
Catching is a very difficult position. You look around the game, and it's difficult. It goes beyond, though, just the offensive side of things, and tying into your question. And what Kelly Shopping did defensively this year was tremendous. He was really, really good back there. He controlled the running game. And so we didn't necessarily get the offensive production that we would have liked to have gotten. But, defensively and as a steward for our pitching staff, Kelly did a really good job. And so, we've got some young guys. We've got a decision to make on Kelly. So we'll factor all that in and also look at external guys as well. We'll try to come up with, the best catching tandem that we can to help us in 2012.
Joe, if you could speak to how much of a part does a catcher play in that pitcher-catcher success?
It's a marriage. I mean, the really good major league catcher really can get a pitching staff through some more difficult moments. During the course, it goes beyond game planning before the game begins. It's that tough moment actually during the game that he's able to go out there, maybe say the right thing to this pitcher or just make the right call in the crucial moment. So it speaks very loudly, largely, to the success of a ball club. And like Andrew said, I thought Kelly did a really good job this year on the defensive side of the ball. He's one of the better throwing catchers in the league this year. But beyond that, you saw him even in the playoffs or even the last month of the season make some really well-timed trips to the mound, I thought. And, conversationally after he had done it, we talked about what he did, and it was right on. So moving forward, we're about run prevention all the time, and it really begins with the pitcher and the catcher. That's where run prevention begins. So yes, the catcher is vital, critical, most important, especially when you're trying to nurture a young pitching staff like we are. But we thought we were very fortunate this year. What Kelly did, and then, you know, Mikey Jaso's got things to learn, no question. Chirinos got a taste. Lobaton, actually, I thought did a nice job. Lobi's got a nice mind behind the plate and mechanically is very good. But moving forward, we have to be very cognizant of that point, because if in fact the starting pitching is pretty much the lifeblood of our group, we got to make sure that the other side of it's appropriate too.
Follow up the starting pitching point. Can you envision a scenario where those 7 or 8 guys on line who made starts for you this year are all back next year? Or is that maybe what you say the default position until another team makes an offer that does it otherwise?
It definitely is, in that, you know, we talked about this last year, that when you have 2 first basemen, you know, that's depth that maybe you can't necessarily afford. When you have 6, 7, 8 starting pitchers, we don't look at it the same way. You look at teams around the league and teams that broke camp with the thought that they had ample amount of starting pitching depth, and that got exposed. You know, that's something that we can't have happen and have a successful season.
Assessing this year, what would you say going into the offseason is going to be the most critical decision you have?
I don't know if there's one. You know, I think for us it's, you know, trying to find that optimal 25-man mix. You know, for us the whole is often greater than the sum of the parts, and that's because of, you know, the way that we focus on roster spots 18 through 25 together and talk through the way different guys complement one another. So I don't know if there's any one, in that one decision could impact another. So everything's so intertwined that it's really going to be the result of what we accomplish this winter that I think will, you know, shed some light into, you know, the prospects for next season.
Mark.
Going back to the idea of your primary goal being to add offense, not trading from your starting pitching depth to be the most logical pairing.
Potentially, and that's definitely something that we're going to talk through, but not necessarily. And it's something for us that, you know, people focused a lot on our offensive shortcomings, and we were an above average offensive team. Would we have liked to have been better? Sure, of course. But we made a point of emphasis on run prevention, you know, going into the 2008 team, into the 2008 season, and everything is interconnected. And so if you add offense, more likely than not, you're detracting from your defense. And so we're not going to do things to leave us, you know, where it's a net neutral move, or even where we take a step back, but maybe optically we didn't. And so all of that's going to factor in. Because optically we could go out and get someone who people say is going to hit 30 home runs and feel like we're going to be a better team. But you won't necessarily be if you give back enough on defense, where you might not be a better team. And so that's where, you know, we have to really get into it. I would love to maintain the caliber of defense that we have and add offense, of course. And so it's oftentimes, you know, very difficult to accomplish, but that's definitely the goal.
It's very uncomfortable for me personally to look out on the field if there's not an above average defender at each position. I'm telling you, it's so comforting to see that, especially when you're trying, when you are nurturing this kind of a pitching staff. Our success is really rooted, if you're going to the playoffs 3 out of the last 4 years, it's because of the pitching and defense primarily. To walk away from that formula would be, I don't think, wise at this point either. Like Andrew's saying, if we hit it with the right guy, that'd be great. But I'm telling you, man, from the dugout's perspective, when the game begins and I look at each spot, we're above average, and that's a huge part of our success. Sometimes these same guys that are getting criticized offensively are these same guys that are preventing runs on a nightly basis. If I'm a major league pitcher, I want to be able to turn around and see those boys playing defense. I think that's very comforting. So as we move this thing forward, I know one thing for sure, I believe, is that the pitching and defense has really gotten us to this point regarding our success. And so as we fill in the blanks in the future, we really have to maintain that level, man, because every night, I swear to you, when you look out on that field and you see all those above average guys out there that really get into their defense and they care about their defense, it's outstanding. And that really permits us to be consistent and have 4 consecutive winning seasons, I believe.
Can you guys address the court commencements? Did it play a role in the outcome of the season?
I mean, again, I'll just tell you what I think. Of course, it is what it is, and I can't dispute numbers, whatever. But the folks that do show up at this ballpark, there's a real loyal following among that group. Prior to the game, I'll walk around, and there's folks by our dugout, there's folks down the right field line. During the course of the game, I'm telling you, it gets loud. Regardless of the number in that ballpark, it's loud. And I do believe we have this loyal group that do come out there and do care about the Rays a lot. And we appreciate that. I do personally appreciate that. Of course, you want to see greater numbers at the ballpark in order to do all the things that we'd like to be able to do. But at the end of the day, do not criticize that group that has been out there. In difficult moments, difficult economy, people on a Tuesday coming out to a ball. I know it's a playoff game, but it's a Tuesday at 2 o'clock. A lot of folks got to work. And a lot of people did show up. So there is a tremendous amount of gratitude from us out to the fan base. You got to understand that we're not just bashing. We're just talking about truly growing this into the organization that we really would like to go beyond the first round, be able to not lose 4-3, 4-3, somehow win 5-4, 5-4. There's the difference. Whereas they got a guy hitting 3 home runs on a specific night that wasn't there last year, and that's what put them over the top. 2 years ago, they had a guy that they acquired in a trade that pretty much got them there single-handedly and beat us in the playoffs last year. So we were so darn close. And we're just trying to figure out ways to get over the top on them. Like I said, 3 out of 4 is fabulous. We want to play to the last game of the season and win it. That is our goal on an annual basis. But at the end of the day, do not criticize the loyal group that does come out and support us consistently. We do appreciate them a lot. We're just trying to get to the next level. And we need everybody to be involved to get to that point.
Same. I mean, I've talked about it a lot. On the baseball operations side, we try to hunker down and figure out the resources that we have and make the best decisions we can within them. The fans that we do have, they're extremely passionate, and it's something that we really appreciate, and it's something that, for us, the gap is so wide between us and the Red Sox and Yankees that it doesn't do us any good to focus on that disparity or to lament, the fact that we can't generate the same resources that they can. It doesn't do us any good. Each market has its own unique challenges. We know what ours are. We embrace them. We operate within them, and we've been successful with it, and we will continue to hone our model going forward and hopefully achieve even more success.
The time is right when the two of you get together this offseason and discuss coach contract.
Yeah, it's something that, for us over the last 6 years, it's been a phenomenal working relationship. We expect it to continue for a long time. We both, keep that out of the public just because it's more of a personal thing. We get the players and, the public attention that gets attached to that. But, I would expect and assume that we're going to work together for a long time.
Mark? Hey, listen, I have a contract. I have another year on my contract, and that's all that matters. I've, for many years, worked on one-year deals. On occasion, I had a 2-year deal in minor league situation. I was fortunate to get a 3-year deal. And so there's another year left on this contract. And like Andrew said, for me, I don't want to go anywhere else. I love it here. I've been given an opportunity here to do what I'm doing without the constraints, in a sense. I mean, it's a very free environment to work within, and I really appreciate that, and I need that personally too. Regarding the lame duck tag, we're all lame duck. We all are on a daily basis, man. So I honestly don't worry about stuff like that. I'm already, like Andrew's talking about, we're already plotting for next year. And when we do plot for next year, we're also plotting for 13, 14, 15, et cetera, as far as I'm concerned. So I know the standard methodology, again, when people talk about contracts and you talk about lame duck status, et cetera. For me, there's no such thing in a sense also. We're all lame duck, but at the same time, it's about us and the Rays. I don't anticipate going anywhere else in the very near future or the future in general. I really, I was talking to Andrew about this before we came down. What we've done over the last 6 years has been incredible, but it's just the beginning. We want World Series titles. We just don't want to get to the playoffs. So there's a lot of unfinished work here yet to be done. And then on top of that, we all talk about it all the time, and you've heard about it, but the working relationship here is unique. Believe me, it's unique. I've been only one other place, but I have friends and I talk to other folks. This is different in all the best ways. To think that the grass is going to be better fertilized or greener anywhere else is incredibly wrong. It's wrong. I don't believe that stuff. I don't adhere to those philosophies or concepts. I really love what we do and how we do it here. And I really think that we do it as well or maybe better than anybody else. I really believe that. And again, it's only 6 years old. Okay, it's only 6 years old. So we're going to keep making this thing better. And it is, for me, the optimal situation and place to work. So for a lot of different reasons, my contract status, I really don't even spend 30 seconds, 10 seconds thinking about that. I'm just worried about 2012, 13, and beyond.
Having said all that,
don't ask me to repeat that, Dick.
no,
I'm good for one time through things most of the time.
would you, or I guess this is addressed to both of you, would you like to have Joe sign an extension before spring training, or could this go into next year?
It's just not anything we talk about publicly. We'll address it and talk through it, and I think the biggest and most important takeaway is that the working relationship, the dynamic with everyone in this organization, like you said, is unique, and it's something that we expect to continue.
Yes.
I guess with everything said, would y'all consider 2011 a success? And if so, when does making the playoffs and not winning it all finally not become a success?
I mean, for me, winning the last game of the season is always the goal, but how could you not consider this year successful? We did win. At the beginning of the year, we got on an airplane at 0-6, and I had this nice bottle of Chardonnay whiskey from the Napa Valley. It's outstanding if anybody wants to get a good bottle of whiskey. And I passed out a shot to each player on the team, as well as RB and everybody else. And I toasted the best 0-6 team in the history of Major League Baseball. Again, I didn't realize how right I was at the time. To come back from 0-6 first team in American League history to do that, history's a long time in this game. History requires many years. And then beyond that, the first team ever to go 9 games behind in September 1 and make the playoffs. We are the best team, the best 0-6 team in the history of Major League Baseball. What we did this year is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Our players, and again, I was talking about that a moment ago, the effort, mental and physical effort on a nightly basis, you could not ask for more from a group than what we got this year. On top of that, sprinkle in all the inexperience that we had to utilize this year to get to this moment and overcome the obstacles that we did in regards to the opposition. It was a huge success this year, and anybody that wants to argue me otherwise, please come by. I'd be happy to engage in that discussion. Winning the last game of the year is always the objective, but under the circumstances, how we got here, I think is fabulous and amazing and truly one of a kind. I always kid with RB daily. The Rays were always trying to create firsts, and we created so many firsts within the organization this year as well as within the industry from the beginning of recorded baseball history. I'm very proud of that. And I'm really proud of our players for all of that. So anybody that wants to argue with me that this was not a smashing success this year, come see me. I'll hang around a little bit. I'll see up in South Tampa at some bar at some point. But it was an absolute huge success. That's what I think.
I understand a lot
unhappy. Johnny gave an emotional after the last game. Talk about the priority moving him back.
Johnny was huge for us, both on and off the field. We all heard a lot about him coming in, and I think until you experience it, you can't really appreciate what he brings to a group. For us, we're going to sit down this offseason and try to map out, what the optimal 13-player, position player group looks like, because so much of it is how everything works together. But I can't say enough about what he brought to the group, both with his performance on the field and then the confidence and preparation and professionalism he brought to the group off the field.
Anybody else?
Dick?
Back to what Bill was talking about, the schedule and starting pitching. You have arguably going in the deepest starting pitching. Would you consider, if it's as deep as it looks like it's going to be, would you consider moving somebody into a bullpen role out of that primary group?
It's something we'll talk about.
Yeah.
It's starting pitching is so difficult to get that we certainly don't want to be flippant about it. If we did it, it would be a short-term move, but there's so many more questions to answer throughout this winter before we really get there.
Yes.
Joe, you characterized your team as a throwback team.
Mm-hmm.
What team from years past would you say they most exemplify?
There's a lot. I mean, for me personally is the 64 Cardinals. And we really accomplished, and that was my team as a kid growing up. I was 10. Actually, that means 1964, I was 10. It's okay, thank you. That's the team I fell in love with. And why? Part of it was the acquisition of a young left fielder from the Chicago Cubs in a really, really storied trade. Lou Brock for Ernie Broglio. We got this young left fielder that pretty much put us over the top towards the end. They had an outstanding starting staff also. They had this team on the field. They had some speed like we do. They had some power like we do. But they played a very aggressive game, and they were very good defensively also. Kurt Flood, one of the better defenders in center field. Mike Shannon was in right at that time. Kenny Boyer, Grote, Julian Javier, Bill White, McCarver, etc. There was a team that was a grinding kind of a team that came back. We broke their record from coming back in September. The number of games behind they were what we were. They had to really overtake the really good Phillies club at that time, who was managed by Gene Mock, who became eventually a very good friend of mine. There's all kinds of weird parallels for me personally with that team and with us. So I'll go out and say that I'm comparing us to the 64 Cardinals, and I'll take that. But there's other teams. I mean, I just like the idea. You see our guys run hard to first base all the time. That's something that we really pride ourselves in. You see starting pitching and defense being the focal point. That pretty much was at that time. If you look at the stats of the 64 Cardinals, nothing really stands out offensively. There was not one of these huge offensive years. It was an amalgam of really nice years, and that's who the Cardinals were. Bob Gibson was the focal point. I don't know, we had maybe James Shields this year as being our focal point among the starters. Their bullpen had Barney Schultz in it. Roger Craig was in that bullpen. All these, there's some pretty good old veterans. But anyway, I really, if we could be compared in any way, shape, or form to the 64 Cardinals, that does a little kid from Hazleton much proud right there.
Just take a couple more.
Andrew, it seems like everyone wants to know how we're going to move to starting pitching for offense, but granted, all that's going. How busy is your phone from other people calling you about these starting pitchers?
It hasn't really started yet. I think people gave us yesterday as a day to catch our breath, being that the off season's in its second day for us. We haven't really gotten into that. I would anticipate.
Even from the season when the calls and everything?
Not really. I mean, we also didn't have the same starting pitching depth during the season that we do now. I mean, with Matt Moore coming up and doing what he did with the success that Alex Cobb had, with just the different things, I think that in the second half kind of gave us even more confidence about the depth that we had going into the offseason. But I would certainly anticipate, especially with the number of teams looking for that we'll receive a lot of calls.
We haven't got Joe. Smitty.
And by the way, welcome.
I see that. I
Are
see
you
that.
really?
Yes, I am.
Smitty.
You guys had a
I almost didn't answer your question as a result.
you guys had a real difficult challenge going into the season, replacing the whole bullpen pretty much, and assuming the guys that stepped up this year, you would have to do that same kind of makeover next year. How do you feel about the group going forward, and how do you plan or hope to bolster it a little bit?
I'm definitely going to get a lot more sleep this offseason. That was a daunting task. Of everything that happened last offseason, that was by far the thing that I think kept us up the most, consumed our thoughts the most, and it's going to be nice to approach it in a little different way this offseason, with really looking for potentially 1 to 2 guys as opposed to an entire bullpen, and to be able to be a little more selective in terms of skill sets that fit in within our group, as opposed to just casting as wide of a net as we did. We have a lot of good guys returning that we're excited about. With Kyle, with Peralta, the young guys with what Gomes and McGee did. There's a lot of talent there, and if we can get 1 to 2 more names to really augment that group, I think it will propel that group even further, and have it be a real strength for us next year.
One last question, Mark. Just the medical issues, Dave Cobb, is he still on track? And Kyle?
I think I think it's as quiet of a medical end-of-year review as I can remember. I sat down with Port and Vinny and Hark yesterday and went through some things, and I think it was as quiet as I can remember, which is a good thing. We might have a few minor things here and there and some things to monitor, but for the most part, in terms of things that we're afraid of having a carryover effect into February or March, none that I can really think of.
Thanks, everybody. We've got some lunch if you want to stick around.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.